Good afternoon. Good afternoon and welcome to the last presentation on the very last day of this very special edition of STIC. Can't hear me?
No.
Is this on?
No,
yes.
Yes. No, we hear you.
Yeah. Is it better?
No.
No. It was for a second. Is there a regular microphone? Yeah, there's one right there.
Wait, start again. No, don't switch it off. Keep it on and wait. No, stop.
Try it out.
Try it.
Hello?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So, good afternoon. Good afternoon and welcome to the last presentation on the very last day of this wonderful conference. My name is Elke.matthijs and this year is my colleague Maikel.Vandorpe. And we're here to talk to you about Lean and Agile at MediaGeniX. MediaGeniX is, as Armin said, the name of the company that we work for. So first, I will give you a short introduction to what it is we do and what MediaGeniX is. And then we'll dive into Agile development, where we will highlight some of the many Agile methodologies that are available, like XP, SCRUM, Kanban, and Lean thinking. First, introducing MediaGeniX, and we'll start off with introducing ourselves. I am Elke, like I said, and I'm an Agile software engineer at MediaGeniX, and Maikel is our company's competence manager for software engineering. The both of us are Agile and Lean practitioners, but we are certainly not gurus. We are here today to talk to you about our point of view, our experience that we have with some of the Agile methodologies. That's it, our point of view. So MediaGeniX is a product company. The product that we have is called What's On. It's completely developed in Smalltalk. It is a planning software for television broadcasters. In total, we have about 100 employees, and this year we've celebrated our 20th anniversary. The headquarters of MediaGeniX is located in Belgium, and these are a number of the customers that we have. You might recognize some of them, like Fox, MTV, Comedy Central, Nickelodeon. In total, we have about 50 customers worldwide. Each of them has a very unique workflow. So what we do is we choose to customize our product so that it will fit the needs of each of these individual customers. So as a company, we want to offer a maximum value to each of our customers. And we do this through a short time to deliver, flexibility, and we wish to maintain frequent communications, so to have a good relationship with them. When a customer comes to us and asks to start up a project, then this project can really vary a lot in duration. Small projects take 1 or 2 weeks, but big projects can really go up to multiple years. So there's a big variety in duration of these projects, but also the team composition varies a lot. At the beginning of a project, a team is composed ad hoc, but there's always a cross-functional team, so you'll make sure that you have people of all different functions that are available in the company in one team. So you always have one project manager, sometimes even 2. You have a number of analysts, you have a little more developers than you have analysts, and then you have at least 1, sometimes 2 people from customer service. So a project at MediaGeniX varies in duration, but also in team composition. Now, let's talk about Agile. But before I can do this, I will first explain to you what software development looked like before Agile was introduced. And what is it that came before Agile? It was something called the waterfall methodology. With the waterfall methodology, the project was divided in a number of very well predefined steps. These are the steps. When a customer would come to you and start up a project, then you would have a long list of requirements. And the first thing you would do when using the waterfall methodology was to talk about all of these requirements, really define them, write them down, And from that point on, you can continue to the next step where all the requirements go into the design phase. When all the requirements have been designed, they all go into the implementation phase. Afterwards, they all go into the validation phase, and in the end, all of them are delivered together to the customer. So it's really a sequential process with typically a large time to market. This large time to market has the disadvantage that the customer is only able to give feedback at the very end of the project. Another disadvantage of this large time to market is that if customers would change their minds about some of the requirements, then they are unable to change them. They are set in the beginning and they remain fixed. So in conclusion about the waterfall methodology, it's a very well-defined process. You set the requirements at the beginning and that's the product you will get at the end. So it's good for stable or smaller projects. And another typical characteristic is that management would make all the decisions. Then, finally, let's look at Agile. With Agile, you also have these well-defined steps in the process. You also have a customer with a long list of requirements. But here, the first thing you will do is ask the customer to choose a subset of these requirements, and these will be defined, designed, implemented, and delivered first. These are typically the requirements that will deliver most value to the customer. So after a first iteration, the customer already has a subset of the software. So he will be able to change his expectations to see what the software really can do, and based on this, it's possible that requirements change. And that's not a problem with Agile. You can just change them, and in the next iteration, again choose a subset of requirements, and these will be delivered in the next iteration. And this process will repeat itself until the very end, until the very end, where you choose the last requirements and the whole software, the final bits are delivered. So if you look at a certain point in time, and this is really different from the waterfall methodology, then requirements are really spread out over different phases of the project. It's possible, for example, in this case, that some requirements have already been delivered. At the same time, developers are working on requirements for the next iteration. Analysts are working on requirements for an even later iteration, and these requirements haven't even been discussed and defined yet. So the customer is really able to still change his mind about those. So in conclusion, Agile is an iterative process, it's an incremental process. Requirements are set in the beginning of each iteration, therefore you have an adaptive planning. You also have the ability to change, to react fast to changes. This is why Agile is set to deliver more value to the customer. And also in general, you have self-organizing and cross-functional teams. So this is what Agile wants to accomplish, but it doesn't really specify how you should accomplish it. In fact, there are many different implementations called Agile methodologies, and this list, well, in fact, it's much longer, but these are the ones that we have experience with. First of all, XP.
Okay. Thank you, Elke. So the first one we started experimenting with was XP, or extreme programming. Some of you were around when it was invented, but we're talking from our experience. So if you have a look at a software project, you know it will cost you something. It's not a typical project management triangle, but you know a software project will cost something, and it depends on the quality, the time or the speed you will deliver it, and also the scope, how much you will put into it. Now, extreme programming introduces a lot of different concepts, a lot of different ideas, and each of them will influence these things differently. So the first one, on-site customer, the idea is to always have someone from the customer next to your development team. This influences all three aspects, of course, because being able to talk to someone from the customer directly will definitely improve the quality, the scope, and the time of the speed. For us, it was not really feasible to always have someone from the customers next to us. So we had something in between called functional analyst, who travels a lot in between. So our customers were originally all over Europe, now worldwide. So they travel a lot and then spend like 20–40% at the customer and the rest at the development team. User stories, the introduction of user stories, which will come back later on a few times. What is a user story? A user story is a small piece of paper with a few words on it, and when you implement that, it's a requirement. When you implement it, it will bring added value to the customer. So adding some database tables to your product, to your databases, is not a user story, because an end user does not care about the database you're using. But being able to edit, add, and update person, that can be a user story. Also this one, I think, increases all three of them. Communication, something, well, the idea is to have good communication between the customer, that everyone is talking about the same thing. So small talk is also very well known about it. You want to have meaningful names for your classes and methods and so on. So you really need a good communication. The idea of a metaphor is also within this one. A simple design, you want to make things as simple as possible, or Euro also mentioned it, I think, and not more difficult than that. Again, I think this one will influence all three of them. Pair programming, something that we unfortunately only do for the more difficult parts, because it's, I think, rather difficult to explain to higher management that the time you want to invest and produce in better quality will eventually pay itself back. A bit unfortunate, but so we do it only for the more difficult parts. Unit testing, unit, all known to everyone, definitely influences the quality, but also the time. The sooner you are able to detect an error, also the sooner you can fix it, and everybody knows in software engineering, the sooner you fix something, the less time that needs to be spent on it. Test-driven development, something we honestly only do for bug fixing, because then we really know what scenario we will need. For everything else, the development might be too exploratory to already write unit tests to really do test-driven development. But it's definitely improve the quality. Continuous integration, I talked about it last year at STIC, to have an automatic build and test system. Definitely gives faster feedback about how you're doing. Refactoring together with a simple design, so you make it as simple as possible, and whenever it is needed, then we're going to make it more difficult, or the other way around, to make it simpler if needed. Collective code ownership, not always loved by every developer. The idea is that the whole software development team, and for us that's 32 people, can touch each other's code. So as a company, you benefit from it. Individually, there are some different opinions about that, of course. Not always that much right. Iteration planning. Well, within XP, there's not much about planning. The idea is to talk with your on-site customers, so the customer is sitting next to you, and it's very lightweight planning, where you say what will be more difficult, also what's more important to do. But for us as a company, that was not enough. So the idea is there already within extreme programming, but it was not enough for us. So what we like, definitely the user stories, we're still using them. Collective code ownership, again, as I mentioned, maybe not on an individual level, but definitely on a company level. Continuous integration, the simple design and the refactoring, and the idea, I think, of small talk, where you keep things simple and you just make them more difficult as needed. and the code reviews and the pair programming is maybe kept for the more difficult parts. So, as a conclusion, extreme programming, as the title says, is really focused on the programmer. You want to deliver software with a high quality and as fast as possible. And the on-site customer, we had an in-between solution for us. Okay, so as drawn there with the triangle, it was not so much focused on the scope, and that's why after introducing extreme programming, we quickly came to Scrum, which is more focused on project management and what the team can handle, and how does Scrum do that, because it introduces the notion of time boxing, and it does that by introducing something called a sprint. And a sprint is nothing more than a time boxed period. So we choose for 2 weeks, so every sprint is 2 weeks, or was 2 weeks for us. But it can also be something between 2 and 8 weeks. I even heard somewhere this week 1 week, which is I think very short. And every sprint is always, you start the 2 weeks with defining what you're going to do the next 2 weeks, then you actually do that work, implementing user stories. At the end, you get a demo to the customer, you have a retrospective for the whole team, talk about what was going well, what didn't go well, but that's mainly as a starting point to improve things. And also assumes a fixed team, and we will see later on why it does that. So again, we have our user stories, and they are estimated in user points. So we have somewhere a reference point about which we say that one is 3 user points, 3 story points, sorry. And then when we have a next user story, then we will say, is it more difficult, will it take longer? And like that, we will assign it more or less story points. Other people are estimating in gummy pairs and chocolates and whatnot. It doesn't matter how you call it. It's just, let's call it story points. So why do you need those story points, and why not calculate in hours and days? Because you are going to measure how much story points the whole team, the fixed team, can do within those 2 weeks. So you can say the team of 4 developers will implement user stories worth of 40 story points. And what's the big advantage of that? That you will cut out overestimation. Because as a software engineer, when you want to estimate something, what you will do is you will split it down in shorter things, and then for everything you will add some. You will start by saying, I need 15 minutes for that, then you will say, oh, just to be sure, I will add another 15 minutes for that, so for subtask 1 I need half an hour, subtask 2 you will do the same, you start at an hour, you say an hour and a half, and then you're already at 2 hours, while your original estimate would have been an hour and 2 hours. So because you count in story points, you don't think about hours or days, you will be able to use those points better. Of course, your team needs to be fixed because of that, otherwise the velocity of your team will of course vary. As I mentioned before, at the end of every 2 weeks of every sprint, there's a retrospective that they want to the team. Also located in team velocity, because people get better at what they do, or might be that the previous sprint was a lucky one, and you started slowing down. As a project manager, there's 2 extra tasks for the project manager. They need to define the sprint, define what they will do the next 2 weeks, but also start calculating with your Gantt charts. So at the end of a project, you know, we will need to do, I think, somewhere 900 story points. We're working at this team velocity, so we can finish the project by then. And that's just the red line that you see there, and they know we're at day 20 and so on and so on. And then they also see, oh, but we need to deliver sooner, and so they can start calculating with these stream velocities and adding people to that. Also, you see here that we calculate in hours per day. As a company, we never got so far to really do the team velocity thing as it is supposed to be, but we always continued counting in hours, which is not ideal. Within Scrum, there's also the notion of daily stand-up. The whole team gathers together and answers basically 3 questions. What am I doing? What am I going to do? How long does it take to do it? And am I stuck? And like that, they can also update the estimates and continue updating the per time chart. Well, that's a task for the project manager. So we would have really liked having velocity. I think that would have been a big improvement over hours and days calculating because of the cutting out of the overestimation. And it definitely was a big step ahead for us in delivering value in a fast way to the customer. So as a conclusion, we needed more flexibility, which is something Elke is going to talk about. And Scrum is a lot more focused on the project management part than extreme programming is.
So the next Agile methodology that we've had the opportunity of working with is called Kanban. First characteristic of Kanban is that it is a pull system. Scrum, on the other hand, is a typical example of a push system where you had a big backlog available, and all of these items had to be in the next delivery. So you're really pushing them through the system in order to meet this deadline. With a pull system, on the other hand, you will only start working on a new work item if there is capacity available. This will also become clear in the next slide. I have an example. So you know what the average demand of your market is, at which pace you have to make a delivery. So each people in all the phases of your project know on average how fast they have to process items in order to meet this delivery. So let's look at the example. Here we have a capacity of 2 people in the design phase and 3 people in the implementation phase, and they're all working on a certain item. But for some reason, one of the developers gets stuck, the item is blocked and he cannot continue anymore. So in theory, there is capacity available, this person is idle, so he pulls in a new item from the backlog. That's a pull system. But now let's look at an extreme case. You really want to avoid this. This is when you have a lot of items all being blocked in the same phase of development, and well, they're all just waiting there. Why is this something you don't want? Well, if one item, for example, takes only a very short period of time to be processed, well then, if it first has to wait 3 weeks or something in the queue just being blocked, then the average time for this item to be processed, the lead time will go up. And what I said earlier was, we want to offer our customers a short time to delivery. So this build-up of blocked items in a certain phase of the process is really something we don't want. Luckily, Kanban has a second characteristic, which is to limit the work in progress. So you can see in the design phase, there's a maximum of 4 items, and in the implementation, 5 items. And you can also see that people were forced to work on the blocked items first before they pull in a new item from the queue. So the advantages of this limiting the work in progress, the advantage is that you will reduce the lead time, but also you will force the people in the process to prioritize the items. First, the items will be chosen that deliver the most value to the customer, and they will flow through first, and then the next items are chosen. The next characteristic of Kanban is that you want to create a certain flow, a certain pace at which items flow through the system. In order to do this, you typically need a buffer. Ideally, and I'm saying ideally, you don't need buffers. But in practice, this is rather impossible. You can't expect people from the implementation phase to always finish an item at the exact same time that a person from the, did I say implementation phase? I meant design phase. You can't expect someone from the design phase to finish an item exactly at the same time that an implementer needs an item. Also, depending on the variability, also depending on how stable your market is, how stable your demand is, buffer sizes will be bigger or smaller. So buffers are kind of needed, but they have a trade-off. If your buffer is non-existent or too small, then you have people being idle. On the other hand, if your buffer is too big, the lead time will go up. So, creating a certain flow, you have to define a certain cadence or pace at which items have to go through the system. So let's imagine that people in phase A of the project only need 1 day to process one item. And in this example, people in column C also need 1 day per item, so they have the same speed. But B needs more time, 1.5 days to process items. So, of course, in the beginning you don't really know what these speeds are, so you just choose a random one. In this case, we choose the speed or the cadence to be 1 day per item. And then it's pretty clear to see that B won't be able to keep up. There will be really a big build-up of items in the buffer before people in phase B. You don't want this because the lead time will go up. Now the advantage of using Kanban is that these bottlenecks will automatically become visible. Like you can see here, B is obviously the bottleneck. Now when you know where the bottleneck is, you can start shifting this bottleneck to somewhere else. For example, to the place that delivers the most value to the customer. You can choose this. So the previous example wasn't really an ideal one, so let's set the pace, the flow of our system, to the speed of the bottleneck. So 1.5 days speed of column B. And now it's obvious to see that items flow nicely through the system. There is no buildup of items, so you have short lead time. The disadvantage, well, it's not a disadvantage, it's something that spontaneously occurs, is that people in column A and column C will have some spare time. But that was exactly what Kanban was aiming for, because this spare time will be put to good use. It's not sitting around idle. These people are encouraged to improve the entire workflow of the system. Not only their own bit of work, but really look at the entire system and make improvement solutions. Another characteristic of Kanban is that visibility and transparency are really important. This is done with the help of a Kanban board, and once a day at the daily stand-up, everyone gathers around the board, they see the entire workflow, everyone is involved. We talk about items that get blocked or that are delayed or something. So people will see where problems occur, and this is how they see where and how to make improvement solutions. There's also a shift in this daily stand-up. With Scrum, you will talk about all the items that are work in progress. Every developer or every team member will have his say. But with Kanban, you only focus or talk about the items that cause a problem. So you're really focusing on what are the problems in my workflow, and then people who are not the bottleneck are encouraged to improve the situation. This is an example of the Kanban board that we have at MediaGeniX. You can see the different phases of the process. You can see, well, it's not a very clear picture, but there are some buffers in the system. And you can see that we have work in progress limits. So what do we like about Kanban? We like the board, you've seen it. We like the work in progress limits, we like the transparency, but we have to be honest. We haven't been using Kanban for quite that long, so we still have to grow in adopting it. There's still quite a lot of work to optimally make use of it. So in conclusion, Kanban is a pull system rather than a push system. This is allowing us to deliver or to be more efficient, so to deliver more value to our customer in a more efficient manner. But it doesn't work without an empowered workforce. You have to have a certain culture, a no-blame culture, so that all the employees are motivated, are willing to make these improvement solutions.
Okay, the last thing we would like to talk about is lean thinking, something that we've been adopting even later, so only for like 7-8 months by now, and we are mainly using it to guide us through change events. So, well, there are two kinds of change events, problem-solving events and breakthrough events. Now, suppose that this graph means the fitness of your system, whether it is delivering software or whatever. But of course you don't know that. So this is the fitness. On the higher you are on the y-axis, the better you are doing. And on the x-axis, you can move by, for instance, adding more tools, removing tools, adding more people, adding more steps to the process, and so on and so on. But suppose you are here, but you don't actually know where you are, but you do know you can get a little bit better, or it can actually also go worse by introducing tools or doing other stuff. But you know you are there, and then you know there's a way ahead. So you climb that hill, improve your system, and you get here. And then suddenly, when you're there, you start seeing some promised land high up on the mountain and in a far distance, and then you would like to go there, improving your system, but you don't want to go first through the valley by doing minor steps. You really want to make a breakthrough event. So problem solving is more when you know where you are and you pretty much know where you want to go to, but a breakthrough event is more adventurous. Okay. But the good thing about lean thinking is that for both events, you can use the same techniques. I will only talk about one, the A3 thinking, because that's really at the bottom of all the rest. And this is an A3 that we recently used. And an A3, well, you might have guessed, is really the paper that you use and you go to the people who are doing the work. On the top, you have a title and the team members, and somewhere you should see my name, but it's way too small. And then you have 9 boxes. And the 9 boxes from top left to bottom right really tell a story. So in the first box you say about which idea you want to work or which problem you will solve. And you start defining that. In the second box, you will really quantify that. You will measure how good or how bad you are doing, how long it takes, how many errors you're making, and so on and so on. So you all put that down in box 2. And then in box 3, you say how good do we need it to be. So if we're making 20% of errors, we think we should go down to 2% of errors. I'm just saying something. So now you know about what idea you want to work, how good you are doing, how good you would like you to be doing, and then you can start doing a gap analysis, and you go to box 4 and you really describe why are we not doing it as good as we would like to do it. So there's also techniques for every box, but I will only talk about the 3. And then you start proposing some solutions. Every solution has a different kind of impact, it has a different difficulty to implement also. So you have a whole list of ideas which you will have talked through with the team. And then in box 6, for all the ones you are uncertain about, you run some experiments and you will say, oh yes, this does have the benefit of this, this experiment has the benefit that we would have hoped for it to be. And then you also have list some of the ideas you will have killed off by now. Other ones will have proven to be as successful as you have thought to. So then in box 7, now that you have really a good idea what all your ideas are worth, you put up a plan And as a good project manager, you will follow up on those to see that everything has been implemented. And then in box 8, you start measuring again. And box 8 and 3 should really give you the same results. Otherwise, you have to do some rethinking again. Why are we not where we wanted to be? Because we really thought about the whole thing. We went to the people, discussed things, and yet we're not where we are. And then you need to go back. So it's really an iterative process. And in box 9, the bottom right, you have a kind of retrospective where you say, what have you learned out of all of this? And you summarize those things there. So this is how an A3 is looking. And as I mentioned, it really tells a story because you take your paper, you go to the people who are doing the work, going to the manager, explaining where you are, you really fill in every box, by box, and it really guides you through the change initiative. And it helps convincing everyone who's involved because you really are asking for their input. It's also a learning tool as when you're starting to fill it in, and I've already done several of those at A3, you learn about the process that you're doing, about the people who are doing the work. Edward Fleming would call it a plan, do, study, act cycle. So it really helps you learn a lot. Lean thinking, so we use it to improve the performance of our work processes. But of course, you need to make sure that you don't fall back again in performance. And that's why you introduce something called standard work, so the green triangle there. And that's either the standardizing of your workflow, standard templates, introducing tools, defining steps in a workflow, and so on and so forth. So all the tools within lean thinking are really visual tools, and we like that a lot. So you really see what is happening. I particularly like the A3 thinking, as it is a step-by-step process which guides you through the change event from a problem or ID definition up into a root cause analysis, a gap analysis, defining how good looks like, and then make sure that you really get there. Lean thinking at first it's really confronting. One of the things we've done is had a look at our delivery of reports, and it turned out that on average it took us around 3 months to deliver a report, while the actual work is only 2 days. So that's really confronting. But when you're applying the no-blame culture, I think you can achieve some really amazing results with the whole idea behind lean thinking. As a general conclusion, we picked some from every aspect, a little bit of extreme programming. We're still sometimes going back to turn down charts from Scrum. We're applying Kanban. We're applying lean thinking here and there. And we're experimenting with it to really deliver our customer the high value that we would like them to offer. But thank you, Pierre, but I'm almost finished. And I think this is also in the spirit of small talk, really experimenting. Jeff McKenna said it this week. It's not only the environment, but it's more the culture that goes with it. And I really believe that the small talk environment and the community has an experimental culture which really allows this kind of neat stuff to be done. If there's any more questions, I think we still have 1 or 3 minutes. Okay.
In your configuration of the teams, I don't notice independent QA or testing group assigned.
Oh,
Would you explain how you do that?
That's actually customer service. We do have some people who are QA and who are non-technical and test the product from an end user point of view. So it was mentioned, not going to scroll all the way back, that there are 1 or 2 customer service which are second line help desk people. Yes, sorry.
Of the different things you've adopted, what do you think has had the most impact, positive impact on your development?
I think if we go to micro level, I think the introduction of user stories to really split up a big task in smaller tasks that are adding value to the customer. Okay, so no more questions, I guess.